G'day, it's Geoff here from Seriously Series. As I mentioned in a previous video, we're going to be converting this 1989 Land Rover Parenti into a support vehicle for our future ventures. What we're going to be doing to the vehicle is nothing too extreme. We don't actually want to change the overall, patina of the vehicle. But one of the things we're going to be fixing today is a fuel tank leak. And we're going to be using this PPC fuel tank repair kit. Now, I've used these in the past and I've actually used one of these kits on one of the tanks in the Series 3 and it's worked brilliantly. So this is a bit of an alternative look at repairing a fuel tank. So stay tuned. So we've got the tank out, the tank's all prepped. So what I've actually had to do is take the sender unit out of the tank. I've had to take the, the fuel line that goes into the tank and actually allows the diesel to be sucked up through into the fuel line and goes to the injector pump. So I've had to take that out also. I'll show you the tank in greater detail, but basically I've had to put rags in and gaffer tape over it to seal it up. Because what we're actually going to put in is a 1-to-1 ratio of this marine cleaner. Now this is basically like a industrial strength degreaser. So what you want to do is you want to mix 1 litre of this to 1 litre of warm water. Now why warm water? Well, the warm water will actually heat up the degreaser, and when chemicals are actually hotter they're more reactive and it'll actually do the job much more effectively. We then put that in the tank, the mixture. We then leave it for, we shake it round for a bit so it coats the whole inside of the tank. Then you leave it for about 20 minutes and then you repeat the process another 3 times until you've run out of the marine cleaner. So you get about four uses out of a 4 litre bottle, obviously, if you do the math. Then after that, the marine cleaner's obviously broken down any residual fuel that's still within the tank, but it hasn't actually cleaned the metal enough. So what we need to use is an acid, and this is called Metal Ready. And basically, I'm not sure what kind of acid it is. I'm sure it's nothing too deadly, but obviously something you don't want to be splashing around and putting in your eye. But basically this will go through and just clean the inside of the tank pretty much as good as it's ever going to get. It'll make sure that there'll be no rust inside the tank and it'll be a really good surface for the actual resin to set to, which I'll show you now. So this is the third and final step, and this is the fuel tank sealer. And basically this is like almost like, you could say a resin or like an epoxy. It sets very hard, and basically what you want to do is obviously leave the tank in different positions so you get a nice even coat over the inside of the tank, and I'll show you how to do that later on in the video. But that's the final step, and basically what it does is a lot of metal tanks, due to condensation, due to if the car's been actually sitting for a long period of time, a lot of grime and grit builds up in the bottom of the tank and on the sides of the tank, and this allows for surface rust to form, and over time, particularly where there's joins in the tank, that'll slowly eat away at the welds, or if the steel's a little bit thinner in spots, it'll obviously eat its way through there and you'll start getting little pinholes all through it. And this is fantastic because it obviously goes in and creates a line within the tank, almost like a plastic liner. It fills in any little imperfections. The previous tank that I used this on, it had really small little pinholes all the way along the seam, and I put this in and it just stopped it completely. Filled them all up, not a problem at all. I first used this kit about probably 15 years ago on a quad bike. Oh, actually I did it with my dad, and the tank's still good today as it was when we did it. So it's not a bad way of getting yourself out of trouble. So anyway, we'll get into it and we'll see how we go. Okay, so this is the inside of the Parenti. As I said, I'll give you a bit of a close-up look. Now you can see the 3 bolt holes there. There's a bracket which I'll hold in place for you to give you a bit of context. And that basically just sits there, and the front of the tank sits on top of this and is located with this bolt here, which I'll point with my thumb, that one there. So by taking that off, the front of the tank can then be lowered. You can then gain access to the fuel filler pipe, which comes down and then goes in, and you can slacken off the hose clamps there, and also for the breather. Now this vehicle is an FFR, so it means picture quality is probably not fantastic, but you can obviously see I've got easy access into the breather hose and also the fuel filler hose, which goes in down here. So it makes it quite easy to work on. And you've got a little tool bench here too, which is always great too. So anyway, we'll get on to fixing this tank. Right, so the reason why I'm looking at repairing this tank is actually due to this here. I'll zoom in so we can have a look. So it doesn't look like much, but when I was actually working out bush early last year for about 6 months or so, I was having to push some pretty tough tracks through, and I hit a stick and it came up and actually hit here. Now that actually ended up cracking the weld that runs down in here inside the tank. Now the way the tank's constructed, obviously this is one part and then this is a second part, so I can't actually access in here to actually fix that weld, or at least I don't think I can. Obviously you can see that I've put some putty through here to try and make a temporary job of it, but it slowed it down a bit, and I did this while I was out bush, but it hasn't really been sufficient. So that's why I've looked at investing in the fuel kit. Now yes, you can buy new tanks of these. I've had a look at John Craddock in the UK, and you can buy them from there, but once I pay the postage cost of actually getting it from the UK to Australia, it ends up being quite expensive. So this will do for now, and if I win tax lotto or lottery in the future, I'll go out and I'll buy myself a brand new tank. So anyway, we'll put the marine cleaner in and see how we go. Okay, so I've put the 1 litre of the marine cleaner in the tank. I've put 1 litre of quite warm water out of the humble kettle. Always make sure you have the right safety gear, so I've had safety goggles and gloves. They're probably not the best gloves for it, but they're the only ones I have at hand. You do want to use chemical proof gloves if you're a little bit uneasy. So just pop that over there. It's always a pain doing this. Right, now that the tank's as prepared as it's going to be, I've got to put my gloves back on, put my goggles back on too. Long sleeve shirts, probably not a bad idea too, but haven't got any long sleeve seriously serious shirts yet, so I'm just going to be very careful and use a bit of common sense. Now what I want to actually do is get the tank and swing it side to side. So I'm going to get a nice even coat of the marine cleaner and the hot water solution all over the bottom of the tank. I'm then going to turn it on its side, give it a nice little slosh to and fro, and then do it on the opposite side, and then very carefully, because obviously we've got the center unit and we've got where the actual pipe goes in for the from the tank to the fuel, the injector pump. Here we've got 2 openings, so we want to be careful with that, so just give it a very quick rinse. The top of the tank generally doesn't get as dirty, obviously, as the bottom of the tank and the sides of the tank, so that's something I'm not too concerned about in regards to this exercise. Anyway, I'll put on the safety gear and off we go. These have got to be the dorkiest safety goggles you can get, but when you have to wear glasses, there's not a lot of options out there. And I refuse to wear contact lenses because they are just an absolute pain, I find. So, the great thing about looking like a dork is you're never in fashion and you're never out of fashion. So, anyway, rightio, let's give this a go. Okay, then on the side. The other side. Now, we want to do the front of the tank too. It's a bit difficult. Good workout. Now we're going to do the base of the tank. Now we've got 2 openings here, so once again we need to be careful. So, as you can see, some of the solutions coming out of this one here, so we'll just add a bit more tape onto that. Better to find out now than when we start using the acid on the tank. Hopefully that works. Oh, yeah, that's better. Okay. Now the most difficult task. This is actually putting it onto the top. So. And that's it. So, very simple. Oh, that's better. Very simple. So now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this for 20 minutes. We're going to give it that time for the actual degreaser to soak in to any grime or any sludge that's built up in the tank. And we'll empty it and then we'll do it another 3 times. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you this the once. Okay, moving along.